Hi, everybody. I'm Sue Hillyard, and I'm here with Michaela Villiers-Kendall for Astrospeak. And today we're joined by Robin Grabfelder, Nia Fyler, and Marty Dixon. So, wow. That's all I can say right now. Let's start with the full moon that just with Uranus square that just occurred, and it was a doozy.
Yeah. Well, it was a super blue full moon too, so a super duper. A sturgeon full moon, they call it as well, I think. Yeah, but it's a rare occasion, obviously, because it just wasn't a blue moon, it was a super moon as well. And there won't be another apparently till, is it the 2030s, I think? So it is quite rare.
Yeah, and was it a partial eclipse as well? No,
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 not yet.
not yet. On September 18th.
Oh, no, no, 18th, yeah.
On the 18th.
That will be, yeah. But this is the full moon, so it's transformative, you might say. It has, and it felt very, very intense. I think we're all saying how intense it felt, particularly leading up to it. It seemed to break as usual once it actually rose, but until then, the tension and the profound depths of feelings, I don't know how everyone else felt on that, was quite difficult. I think for a lot of people. I mean, Uranus, as you just said, Sue, was on the apex at 27 Taurus. So on the apex of the T-square, which obviously it's an opposition, the full moon. So it's right down there in Taurus, Uranus. So, and that is, it's like shocking. It's like it felt unstable, but it's also shaking everything up so we can see what's wrong again. It's
Right.
like, in fact, I saw it as exposing the shadow, because I think it did for me quite a bit. On that night, in fact, I was feeling very, very low. And there came a film, and it was about grief, and a film came on Netflix, and I hadn't had Netflix on for ages, and I just flicked through, and then there was this film, and it was called not Intense Storm, Infinite Storm, with Naomi Watts. I don't know if anyone's seen it. But it said it was about a woman who was dealing with grief. It was a true story. So I went on it and I watched it, and it was harrowing, but it was incredible. It was a very incredible story of processing grief, and Naomi Watts is a really good actress. So, but it's like just by chance at the full moon, and that's how it feels to me. It feels like, okay, suddenly you're being shown something, and it really showed me a level of grief that I hadn't been thinking of. I'd been locked in, and so Uranus does sort of releases all of a sudden. Yeah, I don't know how anyone felt about that. Do you have sort of, yeah, how was that for you, Nia? Because I know you're in the thick.
For me, it was an emotional few days, and it was also days that we were waiting for something to happen in Israel, because this full moon connects to the natal Mars of Israel.
Yeah.
And indeed, there was a big operation in which they tried to take out hostages, but they drew out only bodies. Not hostages, but people who were kidnapped, like there's this sense of trepidation that was very much heightened throughout this full moon, and a sense of instability, as if the earth is shaking, or the air could be cut with a knife, and there's electricity in the air. So that's very Uranian in a sense. I do believe that there's a lot of hope coming in through the cracks, as Leonard Cohen wrote once. That's how the light comes in. And I see Kamala's rise, in a sense, as one of these beacons of light. And I see the civil uprising everywhere, you know, not the ones connected to hatred, but the ones connected to love, to connectivity, not the ones connected to bigotry, not the ones connecting to separateness, but the ones connecting to community, which is again a Uranian aspect, you know, understanding that once we divide human society into an us and them, we've lost already something very important.
Exactly.
And but any time that I see anyone else is different than I am, and me as something superior, more enlightened, more cultured than they are, I've again lost already. So this is another beacon of hope that people are starting to understand that this is really, truly should be a revolution of love. Because what is happening now is a revolution of fear. Fear is being utilized to draw people to different sides, draw people apart, create hatred and bigotry and war, really, you know, violence. Everywhere. We see this in Bangladesh, we see this in the States, we see this in Europe, we certainly see this in the Mediterranean. And I'm just afraid for what would happen, you know, later on if this is the road we're going to continue on.
Yeah, I
You're so right.
totally agree. And, you know, it seems like just in the last week or so, I've seen a lot more people saying, we've got to learn how to live together. And I want to point out one thing. This is the America asteroid in Aquarius, conjunct Pluto, which I think, of course, it is going to go back into Capricorn with Pluto, which is really interesting.
Really?
We do have, you know, about what, in 10, I don't know, 2.5 months of Pluto and Capricorn going over the election.
I don't want to say that, you know, but it feels like the US is going through another one of its shadows again, you know, in a sense.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I just hope, you know, that we won't have again racial, you know, like what happened with Black Lives Matter, you know, after police brutality in the States, as you know, I'm afraid we're going to see some of this again.
Well, my fear
it's
is
not
that
bound to
we're going to have another January 6th.
We will have another January 6th, and it's probably going to last for a couple of months.
Or 4 years.
Well, I don't know
mean,
about 4 years, but no, please, no.
Cancel that.
Well,
Cancel.
Pluto is going back and forth,
Cancel.
you know, until it fully transitions
Yeah.
is
Right,
when we're
and-
probably
and-
going to see.
Even in the like the Sibley chart, Pluto has not by progression even gone into Aquarius, or, you know, will not for a long time. So, I mean, this is a slow process, and, you know, hopefully we can survive this, because, you know, as they keep saying, this is an experiment in democracy, and, you know, oof.
But as you were saying, as Nia was saying, it is, you know, it's in Aquarius. This full moon is in Aquarius, and Uranus rules Aquarius. So although it's in Taurus, like it was, you know, back in, and we'll look at that chart next, the chart of 1941, when the Nazis made the resolution of the final solution. Uranus was at 29 Taurus then. Yeah, that's that chart. So that's on the inner ring. That was on, so it was an exact conjunction of Chiron to Pluto at 4 degrees Leo. Yeah, you can see it there, ascending at the exact point of the conjunction at 4 degrees Leo. So it
Which
was which is the moon of Israel's chart. And of course, Pluto is going to be applying to that point again, you know, from October, isn't it? Goes
For years, yes. Well,
yeah,
I think it's December.
Yeah. So it will be applying to that, and it will eventually get to 4 degrees Leo, Aquarius. So that should be interesting. But anyway, at 19 of July 1941 was the Chiron-Pluto conjunction that seems to be so signified with what went on in World War I, the Balfour Declaration, and then in 1920. And then it went on to the conjunction there. And why Pluto and Chiron, I mean, ideas on that. But I mean, as Melanie says in her book, and she's the one that pointed out that conjunction in 1941, even though it was in 1996, she pointed it out, thinking, well, what's going to happen in 1999 when you get the next conjunction? And so she was right. She said it would be transformative, and how right she was about that. But she was saying it will transform the world. And that was back in 96 she was talking. And she was saying that conjunction of Pluto, obviously, it's the wound. It's the wound of the shadow of humanity, of the collective. So it's our collective wound, which is the shadow, really. I mean, you know, that's it. So there it was. And that's when they resolved on the final solution. Himmler asked Heydrich to implement it, but they had the meeting for December 9th, but it didn't happen because Pearl Harbor happened. So it was postponed, the whole meeting, until January of 42. But that's why they postponed it, because America joined the war. But then they went ahead with it. But that has in 47, and that chart's next. But why I didn't put it, but it came up, the program put it. But I thought, okay, that's meant to be. The square of 2028, which is the next square of Chiron and Pluto coming up, and that's on the 25th of October. And that will be at 6 degrees, I think it's 6 degrees Aquarius, Pluto, obviously, and Chiron in Taurus. So yeah, you've got Chiron, and obviously Saturn's in that mix as well. Chiron conjunct Saturn, squaring Pluto. Yeah, and it's right on the descendant, as you can see, as it's combined with that chart. And yeah, it's opposite Pluto's position almost then, just a little past it. Opposite Israel's moon. Yeah, and you know, we could bring in the USA chart too, which obviously the south node, isn't it, is at 6 degrees Aquarius. So it's all there in the mix. So it means this next 4 years is whoever is president is going to be dealing with it. That's what it seems to say, with the whole thing, which isn't going away, which is just increasing. So yeah, and the full moon, the super blue moon picks this up by the T-squaring, where you can see the Saturn and the moon in the 41 chart up there, conjunct, and that's Pandora's box next to it. And there's Uranus, which is sort of hard to see, but then that's at 29 Taurus. And yeah, we're going to get the return to that point soon of Uranus. So it seems linked in, and that is the time when the Nazis doing that obviously did spur on the formation of Israel. It had been in the mix for a long time and has a long history, but that sort of spurred it on. And then 6 years later, in 47, and actually, as I was going to say, that was spot on. I mean, the meeting between Himmler and Heydrich took place on the 31st of July. And that was the 19th of July, there was the conjunction. So really, really close. Yeah, so that was the conjunction. So then it went on to square in 47, which is the next chart. If we've got that, that's another chart combined with 28. Yeah. So that's 15th of November 47. And that was amazing too, because it sort of reflected the same thing that happened. They made the resolution to have the final solution. But then in 47, in November, the same month again, of the square this time, the UN resolved to partition Palestine. They actually partitioned it, resolved to, that was the resolution, to, and that was on the 29th of November. And as you can see, the square took place on the 15th of November. And there was always there's a lunation involved, which I haven't got there, but there was an eclipse too, and two eclipses that month. There was an eclipse at 6:15 Scorpio. Yeah, Scorpio, no, 20 degrees Scorpio, and then a solar eclipse on the 12th of November, 3 days before the conjunction. And then there was another on the 28th of November, a lunar eclipse, of course, at 5 degrees Gemini. And I don't know if Gemini is sort of or mutable is that. Yeah, it is. Well, it's Pandora's box again. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so.
And opposite Jupiter.
Yes, oh my God. Oh yes, you're right. Oh God.
And Jupiter is hitting this up. I mean, it's all about beliefs and ideology.
Yes. Yes. Well, it isn't all, that's what it's, yeah. And idealism and
It's
yes.
ism. It's basically isms.
It isn't, yeah, it's political,
Isms,
but then
isms, like you know,
yeah.
Judaism versus radicalism and Islamism,
Yeah.
and you know, and
yeah, exactly.
Christianity doesn't have an ism, but you know, it's about
but it's all isms. Yeah, but then you can see that Saturn-Pluto conjunction, because it's already, you know, it had already conjuncted, because that was like in early 47, wasn't it? It conjuncted, and then it's moved on by then. But then, you know, Israel gets that in its chart as well, as you know. Yeah, it gets that Saturn-Pluto still.
Nazism,
With Mars as well.
Yeah, and Mars there. Whoa. And so there's the real reason, but because, you know, yes, built on idealism, but there's a reason behind everything. I mean, behind 2 world wars and power plays and political plays and fear and control. I mean, at that point, 47, that was the beginning of the Cold War, of course. So, well, really the dropping of the bomb was the beginning of the Cold War in 45, because that was showing Russia, who's, you know, America made that play so as it would show Russia what was what. No, for no other reason, because it couldn't take the chance of Russia, and nor could Britain and Europe, of having Japan surrender to it. It had to step in first, and it did it. It had the bomb, and it all happened fatally. But that Saturn-Pluto shows what's behind all that ism is political power play of, you know, Russia was the enemy, I guess, and they made their play. But then it shows everything, yes, is disguised behind the scenes of these isms. There's a bigger play going on, and it's always to do with power and money and control and territory and a base. I mean, Israel, yes, had real reasons for being founded.
But you're right, Michaela, even in Israel, these plays were played, and you know, these I mean, it's human behavior in a sense.
Yes.
And you know, we could look back at human history and see how basically civilization was erected on these power and money struggle, you know, underneath the cloth of many pious things.
Yes, let's just say it's God. Well,
under the name of God, the most horrific things in history.
Yes, exactly. Terrible. But and it's been forever. But then we've seen these 2 world wars. We are still in the midst. I mean, you can see by this Chiron Pluto, these transits, we are still in the midst of what happened in World War I and World War II. It hasn't ended. It never did end. The power, because obviously the Cold War was part of it. And so it's been going on ever since World War I, in fact. And so that's what is behind everything. But the politicians all pretend it's something completely different, like Monty Python used to say. But you know, the real reason is that the big foot in the sky is the politicians, anyway, of all these countries. Anyway, that amazing. I think that Chiron and Pluto show us the real wound behind that, which is the shadow, the collective shadow. And we're going to see in these next 4 years, 2028. In fact, that conjunction doesn't end there in 2028. It goes on for another year after that until December 9th of 29. As an aftermath, yeah, because of the retrogrades. And so it then finally ends that square at that same degree of Saturn there at 28 in 2028. It ends up with Chiron at 8 degrees Taurus square to Pluto at 8 degrees Taurus, Aquarius. And that's the end of the square. And that's in December 29.
And
so, yeah.
There was a Mars retrograde in right after this 1947 in 48, there was a Mars retrograde in Leo as well.
Was that
every time Israel has a big war, there's a Mars retrograde.
Yeah. Well, these fixed, now everything, so much is in fixed signs, obviously Uranus for a while and now Pluto, and then of course Saturn is going to be as it is there, and Chiron. Let's not forget Chiron. Chiron, because we have forgot Chiron over the years, but obviously we shouldn't have, because it's very much, that's why there is the myth of Prometheus and Chiron and Hercules and Nessus. And by the way, Nessus is very, very configured in all of this as well. You can see Nessus there. It's at in the first chart, it's at oh God, where is it? Taurus, I think. Yeah, that is at 9 degrees Taurus, which is very close.
Is it? This is it here?
Yeah, that's Nessus with the N on the top.
Okay, gotcha.
And Nessus, in the myth, started it all along with Hercules, and they had this running feud going. But what that was meant to show was the revenge, the resentment, the competition, the power plays, the revenge that ended up in mass slaughter in the end, because obviously that myth was to show this is mankind's problem, that they cannot just forgive. They can't reason anything out. They act out of resentment, fear, control, power. And that whole myth, which was the centaurs, Pholus, Nessus, Chiron, there's a few others, but they're the main ones, Chiron, Nessus, and Pholus. And it was the spilling of the wine of Dionysus, and that meant to be that once the wine is spilled, that's of the ages. That's all this power and resentment of the ages and all the pandemonium that comes out of that. And mankind keeps falling into this. And that was what the myth was telling is that that's what we do, and that's our wound. That's why Chiron was wounded and couldn't recover from his wound. He had his foot was caught by the arrow dipped in the blood of the Hydra, which killed all the centaurs, and it eventually killed Hercules as well in the end. So everybody died except Chiron, who couldn't, but he was the healer as well. So that out of that, it's a wonderful myth is showing us that, yes, Chiron was the wounded healer and he carried that wound for humanity, but he also healed it, and he healed it by his sacrificing to save Prometheus from eternal suffering on what you could call is a cross. It was a rock, but say it's a cross. And so Chiron, like Christ, took his place. And that is the meaning of the myth. It is forgiveness. It is saying, I will sacrifice myself as the healer, and I will take your wound. And that's what Christ, the whole thing is saying too, which is, that's part of the Christ myth. But that was carried in people. Let's not go into that. But historically, that's the hope of mankind. And it's the Aquarian hope as well, isn't it? Just like you were saying, Nia, it's like love, forgiveness. That's the antidote. That's the healing. But what is showing us through these transits of Chiron to Pluto is showing this is the shadow. We can heal from this, but we must look at the wound. And Pluto transforms the wound along with Chiron, but first it will destroy in order to do that. It will go as far as it needs to go in order to wake us up.
It would eat away. It would,
It will eat away and it will show us. But then when we see, and that's why I think this full moon is so transformative, because it's like, look at it. Look at the wound, look at the shadow. This is the shadow, and it's horrific. It's not just like this thing about shadow work. Oh, do your shadow work and you do fine. What the hell is shadow work anyway? You don't know
you've got to move the shadow into the light sometime, you know.
Yeah, it has to be exposed.
And talking about being
Yeah.
exposed, talking about sacred light, just a second, and
Please,
related
please.
to
No,
what
no,
you
go.
said about the full moon. We
Yeah.
have to remember that this full moon has, Vesta in Cazimi, and Mercury almost in Cazimi. And Mercury, of course, is in charge of our cerebral faculties, understanding things, learning stuff, seeing the picture. And Vesta is the sacred fire, is what you are devoted to, you know? And that devotion to what is sacred for you in your life is important in this time. And you could say that if this Uranian full moon, supermoon, blue moon, sturgeon moon is also connected to its ruler, Uranus, which is now in Taurus, it's all about matter. So we can say, on the one hand, all the isms are a cloth for people wanting power and money and just sensual enjoyment through life, that lust of having affluence in your life. And simple people who want tranquility and stability and just not having to survive each day, and fight each day and have peace and love. So Taurus goes both ways. It can go to the low and the high spectrum, but Uranus, the ruler, is now there. And it's all about, what are we doing to the land? What are we doing to Earth? What are we doing to ourselves, in a sense? Learn the picture, see the picture is becoming clear. Become devoted to what is sacred for you in your life. And if there's one message I want to leave you with tonight, because I have to go in 5 minutes, is really, this is an oceanic storm. We're all astrologers, and we don't like to be heralds of storms and darkness. We don't. But we can all see that we're in an oceanic storm, that the weather isn't regular right now. And I think the most important thing for each and every one of us in our communities, wherever we are, is heightened love, heightened acceptance, heightened tolerance, heightened sympathy, and community. That's the way we're going to survive through this. And I always tell my clients, imagine you are on one of these ocean cruisers that sails through the ocean in the storm, and the sky is black and the waves are reaching the heavens. But in the cabin, there's warm yellow lights, and the atmosphere is beautiful and warm, and the soft music playing. And girls, why don't we sit down, because the food is just about to be ready? And this is the kind of atmosphere that we must cultivate in our own worlds,
Gratitude.
Gratitude for everything, not taking nothing for granted, nothing whatsoever. And coming back to our personal lives, this is our way to combat the grief that we all feel, each for her own reasons, about what is happening in this world right now, whether it's connected to human society or to the natural world, to animals being extinct, whatever it is. That's the only way that we could truly combat it, with light and love and cultivation of the little universe that we occupy.
Yes, that's so right. I mean, you speak that so well. Empathy, and realizing, yes, we're all in the same boat, to make that analogy.
Exactly.
And Yeah, and we are in the same boat.
We are,
So that's the Aquarian spirit, to realize that we are a
that we're
community.
different, but we are in the same boat. We're
Yes,
different. We're
yes.
all different, but we are in the same boat. And once we don't understand that we're in the same boat and we divide ourselves, we've lost. And once we think we're better than the other part, we've lost again.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
ship Earth, the
Yes.
Earth ship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And each individual. So it's the individual too. That's Leo and the Leo sun and the Aquarius, the Aquarius moon in this case, saying, well, we are individuals and have to honor ourselves individuals and have compassion for ourselves too first. Love ourselves. If we truly love ourselves, how can we be full of hate for anyone else? That sounds utopian, but that's what we have to realize, that we have to strive for. And then we can love others, because the truth is we don't truly love ourselves. We are egotistical and we want to feed our egos and we want to save ourselves, but we don't love ourselves. As you say, there's a big difference between love
All
and ego.
wounded.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all wounded.
Yeah, we're all wounded. Yeah.
I think love goes through acceptance, and
Yeah.
acceptance goes through realization.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that this is all a journey for us as individuals and as a society. And that we have to accept our failures, and talking about our failures, our society's failures as well, as something that is also a tool for advancement. And I say often that if we would have not been dealing with the problems that global society is dealing with now, we wouldn't have been as good as we can be in the future. When we reach other planets, God is willing, and when we will become the gardeners of the universe, God is willing, it would be because we've dealt with overpopulation and hunger and war and global warming and environmental destruction in the past and overcome them. Not
Yeah.
because we haven't,
No, exactly. We can't just go there without dealing with it. That's the
Yes,
whole
as
point.
Pluto says.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it's acceptance of that too. Acceptance that suffering has a meaning, like the
Yeah.
Chiron. Suffering has meaning.
And
Unfortunately,
sacrifice.
that's the way it is in our material lives, at least for now. But that doesn't mean it's going to be like it forever. But we have to go through the process. We just can't click
And
our
when you think, why me? Just remember, we all chose to be here right now.
Yeah.
That
Exactly.
even though we're just drops in the ocean, we are part of a very, very, very amazing current that
Yeah.
runs through this ocean of life on Earth right now. And if you will, we're all parts of an elite squad of souls that came here intentionally to carry on their shoulders the weight of this transformation, this precipice that we're on. On the one hand, losing the dominion over the one planet that we have. The planet would go on. Human civilization might not, The planet and life will go on. Or getting 1,000 more planets and going into an age of exploration like we had in the oceans before, but in space. A golden age of peace and prosperity. What a precipice this is. Almost science fiction. And here we are. This is our reality.
Yeah.
Ain't that
Exactly.
exciting? We live in interesting times, as the Chinese like to say. We
Yes.
chose to be here.
Yeah.
And we're
Yeah.
apt for it. We are apt for it. And we can do it together.
Mhm. Yes. Wonderful.
Amen, sister.
Yeah.
Amen.
And we have, right now we have Uranus ruling Pluto. And then, we'll go back and do a little bit of, Saturn ruling it.
Mhm.
And then we'll come back to Uranus, ruling it. And then Uranus is going to move into Gemini too, which is going to be a whole new
Acceleration of things.
acceleration of things.
The
Exactly.
sextile to Pluto, yeah. Which is the same mirroring of World War II, of course. It went into Gemini in World War II. But then things did pick up for the Allies, at least, when it went into Gemini. So, yeah.
Well, let's hold the thought that we learned something from that and that we'll do it differently this time.
Yes, well, that's the whole thing. It keeps repeating, cycles repeat until we realize that how our minds work, and that's what is at the base of the shadow. It's saying, well, you have an unconscious. You are not just. We are, yes, dual, in that we have unconscious minds and we have conscious minds. That's, solar, lunar, and we must balance between the two. It's when we don't balance between the two, and we cut off the unconscious completely, the moon, in other words, that we are completely in our solar minds, but our solar minds can be left, that's left brain. That's
could be egotistical.
hollow. Yes. And that's the masculine brain that has taken over and thinks it knows everything. And it doesn't need the moon. It doesn't need the unconscious. But the unconscious is, that the feminine, the moon, actually, it is the void. As you were saying,
I
it
have
is.
to go. I'm so sorry. I have to leave you. It's
Oh,
Thanks
that's
for joining us,
wonderful.
Nia.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
sorry I have to go
Thanks so
early.
much.
And
Give
I'll see
some.
you next time, hopefully.
Stay
Love
safe,
and
please.
embraces
Thank you.
to you all. Amen. You too.
That was
Bye.
great.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Nia.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
So I have one comment to add
Yes.
to
That was wonderful.
what you were
Great
just
having
what you were just saying in that cycles repeat. Yes,
Yes.
cycles repeat, but they kind of overlap, and they, with different variables, so that we have in my mind spirals. They
Yeah.
come around, but they're at a different level, and they come around and meet up, but they're at, it's at different levels. So
Well,
That's a
that's how our
really-
solar system works, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. Spiral. Yeah.
exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That's a really good point, that we actually do elevate, and as our consciousness elevates.
Yeah.
As
And what
we
you were
start-
saying, what you were saying about the sun and thinking that, we don't need the moon. Well,
Yeah.
it is the unconscious. It is the moon that actually dictates much
Yeah.
of what we experience and do, and not
Yeah.
the sun.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And that's, of course, Isis, the great mother, all that myth is to do with that, the sun and the moon, the Egyptian myth of Isis and Osiris. And, and we are coming, Aquarius will kick off the epoch of the great mother. So another like 6,000, 7,000 years of the great mother will be entering. And the great mother, of course, is the moon, Isis. Aquarius is ruled by the moon in that myth. And, the sun, obviously, Leo. So the golden age was Leo, and now we're at Aquarius. We're entering the silver age, you could say, the silver epoch. Yeah. Yeah.
And Isis and Osiris will meet again in Aquarius soon. They've been alternating between Leo and Aquarius. They meet up. One goes ahead, and the other one catches up, and then shoots ahead, and they do this dance, and they meet up every I think it's every
Really?
4 years, maybe, in either
Wow, really?
in either Aquarius or Leo. Lately it has been. I mean, at one
Yeah.
point before that, I think it was Leo or Virgo and Pisces, but at this right, the most recent ones, and they will meet up again in that area of Aquarius, where all the Mars Venus, the two Mars Venus conjunctions in a row were, where the Jupiter Pluto conjunction was. So I mean, well, we are moving towards Aquarius.
Yeah. Yeah, we're sort of in the twilight zone at the moment, but yes.
Right.
So we're in the exact polar
Goes down
opposite stage of ages of when we shifted from Virgo to Leo, and that was, I believe, when the pyramids were built.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So
Which is why there's so much awareness around that now.
Yes, of course. It's all come back, and it will get more and more into the collective consciousness, as it is doing, as you say. Because it was always meant to come back now, because that's our preparation. Yeah. So our remembering is happening, remembering of Osiris, dismembered body of Osiris, remembered, put together, as in the cycles, as in the phases of the moon. Yeah, on the Great Wheel, which is fantastic. It's so that's why we need that big picture to think positively about what's happening now, was to keep the big picture in mind. Yeah. So shall we move on I mean, do you want to do the yacht quickly and then move on to Marty's, or shall we move on to first? And what should we do? Which would you like to do? Oh, okay, quickly, the yacht, because it's quite interesting with the moon, the Black Swan event, very quickly then. I mean, that was the yacht disaster that happened on the same day as the full moon. It happened at 4 a.m. It was caught on camera. So that's the exact time when Cancer was rising in Palermo, Italy. This was a super yacht, and tragic circumstances. 5 people have been confirmed drowned now. There are survivors. But what happened was, it was this Black Swan event was, there was a storm, a very bad storm. The yacht was harbored off Palermo. And the storm came up. They should have known about that, but why did they didn't go to an hotel? Again, it's sort of like a blindness in the mind. And this is what happens with human beings. We have a blind spot. They could have gone to hotels. Why were they at sea at all, even though it was a harbor? But anyway, they were at sea. And then this tornado came up that was like a chute, called a chute, I think.
Water
But it was
chute.
a water chute, and it was like a Black Swan event, because it's very rare. But it actually engulfed the yacht. The yacht had one of the highest masts in the world on a yacht, beautiful super yacht, big, and the owner is actually, the people who built it have actually just said it was unsinkable. And it just made me think, that word unsinkable again, like the Titanic, which we mentioned last time. Unsinkable, but yeah, the hull was unsinkable, but it had the highest mast, which was gonna, why you would have the highest mast that could catch winds and tip it over, which had to be part of the equation. Whatever else contributed, it must have been part of the equation. But then, so it is like so through the whole story of it, it's like there were blind spots. They just weren't seeing yet. The owner, and we can look at his job, but as you can see there, you have Chiron and Eris together there, as they are. No, not Chiron. No, Chiron. What am I talking about? Chiron and Eris, and Chiron is going to come up to Eris. That's sort of highlighted it. So that, like the Titanic. The Titanic was sort of heralding, and this is a much smaller event, obviously, but it is still it's got similarities in that it shows the blind.
I was thinking, yeah.
Yeah, and it shows the unsinkable thing, and yet it shows an obvious thing was wrong with like the highest mast and not going ashore, thinking they were untouchable. And so this event, you could say maybe it is like Titanic, marking the entrance to World War I. Not saying we will go into World War III, but we're in a kind of World War III now. It's just being it's like a pressure cooker that's keeping it on wraps. But we've got 3, points now cooking. We've got Gaza, we've got Ukraine, and we've got Taiwan in the equation. And it's all starting to boil. So we are in danger of World War III, whether we can stop it breaking out. As Nia said, the only way we can stop it breaking out is with what we're being warned now, is to look at our blind spots, look at our shadow, look at the collective shadow and our individual shadow, really look at our, and that means knowing we have an unconscious, we are not in full control, and we need to balance our unconscious. If we don't, times of trauma or anything else, it will, sorry, that's my dog. We will act, we will conspire with fate. And we do conspire with fate. And maybe that's a necessary thing sometimes to show us that we're blind, like Nia was saying. But anyway, so this really encapsulated that. So it's a really interesting chart. But looking at the owner's chart, because he was a tech giant in Britain, but he just sold everything to Hewlett-Packard in America about 11 years ago, and he's been fighting a case with them ever since, and he just finished the case, and he was celebrating with going in this, taking his family and friends and the lawyer, some of the American lawyers who'd helped with it on this yacht.
It's too bad they didn't consult an astrologer.
Well, this is it too. It's like there is no belief, there's no trust in that. There's no trust in anything else.
Or a
but
weather person.
Yeah, or a weather person, or an astrologer, or something other than just the seeming reality, which isn't really reality anyway. It's what we perceive. But we are so locked into that we think we're perceiving reality, but we're not. And we better know that we're not. And astrology tells us we're not. But there you go. Yes, ignoring nature as well, ignoring the cycles, ignoring everything. And terrible, because he's obviously, what they say about him, really nice man, actually, for a tycoon. But
it seems like Neptune clouded his vision.
Yes, but there was a lot of clouded vision. It wasn't just his. The captain didn't take precautions. I mean, and yes, why did they have that yacht with the highest mast? And even the creator, the builders of the yacht are saying, oh, it was unsinkable. It's got to be the crew's fault because that's unsinkable. Well, it's rubbish, because you could just see that bloody mast that, as Sue said so rightly, is like a bloody great phallus symbol.
Well, like you said, like the Titanic, they thought it was unsinkable, right?
Yes, and all those big funnels and everything. What is this? It's the male principle. It's gone mad again and thinking like Prometheus, that it rules the earth and that it can battle nature and overcome nature. That's the word, isn't it? And then nature comes along and astrology comes along and tells us, no, we can't. No, we can't. And it's just as well we are told that, because otherwise it also shows us, sorry, Lottie. Can't even control my dog. It shows us that we are not in control. And that's why we should also not completely blame ourselves for everything as well. That's why we should forgive ourselves. And why we should realize our own unconscious, maybe we just didn't listen to it. Maybe we didn't listen to our lunar principle because we're so into our solar principle too much. And it needs rebalancing, like the Aries, Libra, nodal axis now showing us Mars and Venus, male, female, solar,
well,
moon.
The full moon showed that.
It showed us. And so anyway, in Mike Lynch's chart, he had terrible though. He had that Saturn Chiron conjunction he was born with in 65. He was just approached. In fact, he just had his Saturn return. He's going to go back over it, I guess, but it's at 19 now, isn't it? And so it was right in between, on the midpoint of Chiron and Saturn in Pisces. And of course, he's got that opposition in his chart as well of Mars in Virgo, Pluto, wide conjunct, but it's conjunct, and Uranus as well. So triple conjunction then. So it's like it came to fruition, which is not to say, and then obviously, he's got the T-square with his sun and his Jupiter, and his nodal axis as well is involved there in mutable.
Well, all of that was square the whole square that's happening.
Jupiter right there, as Sue pointed out. In Gemini and Mars. So
and the node.
Yes, there was and the node. So potential for a crisis, a calamity, which is not, we all believe it's not that. I don't believe anything is unavoidable, although we can't prove that. We can't know what's fate and what isn't. But it's only positive to think that we might, if we are more in touch, as collectively or individually, with fate, that we have more of a chance of, there's a very good book I read years ago, and sort of like cooperation with faith, cooperation with the gods. So you can cooperate with the will of the gods by noting your transits, by listening to your intuition and your unconscious, by knowing that you even have one to start with, which helps. And so maybe you've got a fighting chance there, but you should never underestimate it because the unconscious is powerful. And if it cannot get your attention consciously, it will do it via events and fate. And looking at the bigger picture here, there is a bigger message than individuals. So you could say that, souls have contracts that say, even countries have contracts, souls of countries, saying this is our mission to serve humanity, because we all serve humanity, we all serve the greater. And even if it seems tragic, if you look at the bigger picture, we serve humanity even with our suffering, like we were saying before. It all boils down to the same thing, basically.
So, Michaela, that T-square is right, totally involving his Saturn because it's at 17 degrees.
Yes, exactly.
And so then it pulls in the moon, and
Nessus isn't on that chart, but Nessus is right there in it's at 19 degrees Pisces.
Okay.
Yeah, Nessus at 19 degrees Pisces, so it was right there, conjunct Saturn exactly now. And Nessus, as we said, again, it's part of the Centaur Chiron myth, again, Prometheus saying, hubris, don't be too proud, look at your limitations, and it's basically the collective limitations that we're not looking, and it's the collective that has to get this funneled through to from the individual and from catastrophes that happen individually that seem like they're to individuals, but really they're just part of the whole web that is the collective web. So yeah, Nessus right there at 19, conjunct Saturn, now right on that midpoint. Yeah, it's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. So now we can take it on to any other comments on that? Or did we I mean, it is incredible. It'd be great to know his ascendant, of course. We don't know that's the solar chart, obviously, dawn chart. But yeah, maybe his ascendant, his birth time will come up. Which might show the full moon, absolutely contacting.
Right.
So yeah, black moon conjunct Pluto right now too in Aquarius there. His black moon being contacted in the 8th solar house by Pluto.
Yeah, and wasn't it Neptune was conjunct that full moon?
Yeah.
I mean, squared that full moon. And his whole mutable T-square there was triggered by the mutable T-square.
Yes.
On the full moon.
Exactly.
So
yeah, so very strange, but yeah, very fated. And as I say, you can take faith out of fate too, because we judge that fate is terrible. And yes, obviously it was tragic and terrible, but then, as evolutionary astrologers, we obviously think that our soul has a greater purpose than just one life. And we have a great purpose for this life. And whatever, even the most terrible things that happen, have a purpose. They serve a purpose for our lives and in the collective. And then we, that's what our mission is for this life. And his mission seemed to be all this high tech stuff, but obviously it was greater than that. Yeah.
Well, it seems like he wrapped up his mission with finishing that lawsuit. Maybe who knows?
The timing was just ridiculous. Because of the timing, he'd been in his house under house arrest for the last 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Because so he'd been fighting the case for 10 years and then out under house arrest for the last 2. So he had just finished and he was absolved of any guilt. So he decided to go on this holiday.
Why was he under house arrest?
Sorry?
Why was he under house arrest?
because he still had guilty charges against him, and bad enough for billions. Apparently, Hewlett Packard had brought him, said that he'd falsified the sale. That he had, misled them.
I
So they
see.
went on for 10 years, and then house arrest, and then he breaks out of house arrest, and then this happens. So you would have thought the OS was over, but then, as you say, astrology showed that it was not. It was not over.
Yeah. It would be,
Yeah.
I assume that the progressions and transits to a time chart would be fascinating.
Yeah, that would be interesting to do, actually. Look at his progression.
Okay. So
And when it started.
Yes.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, yeah. So, yes, shall we go on to Marty's stuff now? We're all under this full moon. Camilla Harris, right? Great.
So Kamala was born at a full moon.
Wow.
Yeah, almost exact.
Wow, gosh.
I mean, very, 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 very close.
Huh.
39 seconds, 27 degrees, 39 seconds, and 27 degrees and 48 seconds. So
Wow.
she's a full moon, another full moon baby.
Yeah.
Is in politics, and the full moon was right on her Saturn.
Gosh. Responsibility.
Right. Authority.
Authority.
Top of the
Yeah.
mountain.
Sure. Sure. On a midheaven. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that couldn't be more appropriate, could it?
Right.
And that
Wow.
mutable square triggered her chart also.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And Mars as well.
Her Venus for sure.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Sure. Oh, gosh. Yeah.
It's a very powerful Venus.
It is, isn't it? And yeah,
Conjunct Pluto and Uranus.
yeah. We've got Saturn, of course, has just gone over Venus, but it's, I don't know.
Mhm.
I think it will go over it again. It will retrograde over it, won't it? And then go back.
Yeah, I think it gets back to 12.
Yeah.
So it'll also go over her Chiron.
So it's going to, we should look at do you have the timing for that, Marty? Did you look at that? Because that's be nice to know when that was.
Just let me know if you want to see the slides.
When what
Yeah.
was Michaela?
Well, when that is, when Saturn goes over that, that'd be interesting. But I don't know.
Well,
But
let's look at Marty's slides.
let's look at that. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. So
Fantastic.
so Marty, let's see. I think I need to let's make you co-host, and you ought to be able to share your slides now.
We good?
I see your, yep.
Okay. All right. Here's current transits, and just to show that we've got Pluto at 0 degrees right now. And can everyone see this okay? We're good?
You might want to make it full screen. Do
Oh,
it.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you
Let me
can make
try
it
that. Bear
bigger.
with me a moment. Sorry about that. Are we good?
That's good.
better.
That's great.
Okay, all right. So Pluto, as you can see, is at 0 degrees Aquarius, and I'm not going to try to explain this very much because I think it's pretty self-evident. I don't want to go too much into interpretation because I think that a lot of us are at the point where we can kind of that's 0 degree Aquarius. I mean, that's a crux point and that's a turning point. And of course, Pluto, as Sue mentioned, is going to be retrograding back into Capricorn in September for about, I think, 2.5 months. And then come back out to Aquarius early next year, early at the end of 2024. So it is going through the zero point of Aquarius right now, which is a very sensitive point. and it's a crux point between Aquarius and Capricorn. So we're going back to the past to go forward, of course. That's what retrogrades do. But we're going to visit the past and then move forward. You interrupt me at any time because I start going like a locomotive, and you have to just say, raise your hand and say, slow down or stop, or I. But as we very well know, Pluto started dancing in Aquarius around 2020, started entering Aquarius around 2020, when we had that incredible stellium in Capricorn. I think it was five of the main planets in Capricorn in the winter of 2020. And then 2 years ago, basically the winter of 2022 into the winter of 2023, Pluto did retrograde back to Capricorn again. I just lost my screen, excuse me a moment. And so now we're pretty much in Aquarius, as opposed to the one, Pluto will dip its toes into Capricorn one more time starting in September of 2024, like I said, and then come back out, and we're pretty much in Aquarius. So we are past the Pluto in Aquarius point. We are Pluto in Aquarius. And happy Virgo sun, everyone. To all you wonderful Virgos. And this is beautiful to me because as we approach, I'm going to be talking about Kamala's chart and Tim Walsh's chart. And like I said, you just have to tell me to time out. Just tell me if we're out of time. I want to look at the Sibley chart a little bit in election, of course. And this lecture that I have might be better suited for next September, as Robin was mentioning. So whatever I don't get to today, we can try to pick up in September, and I'll have all the charts and information.
Right, and you're always welcome to do your own meeting. This is more of a conversation about what's going on. But yeah, we would love to have you do your own meeting on how you see everything playing out.
Thank you, Sue. So again, we're in the sun is in Virgo right now, and of course that's the most discerning sign of the zodiac. And what I want to talk about now, I mean, I have been so immersed in what everyone has had to say, I wouldn't have been able to comment. I'm just so engrossed in what everyone's saying. It's amazing. And we're in a time right now, this time of Virgo, and up until the election, when we need deep discernment, because things are so fractionalized and so divided and so polarized that we need to think, well, I'm not of this persuasion, I'm not of that persuasion, I'm just me. I'm Virgo, I'm me, and I'm thinking for myself, and I'm thinking clearly, and I'll take a little bit from this side, and I'll take a little bit from that side, but I am going to discern for myself. Thank you very much. I'm going to decide and discern for myself what I want to believe, and take it from there, bottom line. And so that's where we are right now in terms of the United States and our election process, and each individual has got to weigh all of the factors, Virgo, and decide, where am I on this issue and that issue, and not be so nationalistic or patriotic, or what is the word, to try to be impartial. What's the word I'm looking at?
Biased?
One side or the other?
Biased?
Yeah, it'll come to me in a minute. But just think for yourself as a human being. Don't say I'm this label or I'm that label. Nonpartisan is the word I'm thinking of.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just me, and then take it from there. That bottom line, Sun in Virgo. So let's go ahead and move on. But right now we do have the moon in Aries conjunct the North Node in Aries, and you guys have to jump in there, because like I will just keep going. But the way that I look at this, and conjunct Chiron in Aries as well. And thank you so much for those deep interpretations of Chiron. It's wonderful. You guys are great. But right now, the North Node is in Aries for all of us. And the way I read that, I don't read very much from a very factual basis or astrological basis. I read from a feeling basis. I feel the chart. I feel what's going on, and then I look at the chart. It's feel it first, meditate first, and then go to the chart. And what this tells me is, to all you people who haven't made up your mind or don't know how you feel about the current United States electional process, wake up. Wake up and speak your mind. This is how I see this, that we are all political warriors in our own right. Lifting my cursor, but we all have something to say, and we all have something to heal in a very Aryan sense. And I tend to be very neutral. I always have been my whole life, but I'm becoming more of a political activist right now. And I am speaking up, and it's scary, but I'm doing it. And that's how I read this right here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very good. Yeah. Just
So
right on.
go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that's right on. Yeah, exactly. That just feels, yeah, exactly.
I'm glad
Yeah,
you
warrior.
understand, Michaela.
A
Yeah, because it's very
political
strong.
warrior. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
I feel
Airy.
it. And I recommend everyone, and I don't mean to sound like a speaker at a convention. I really don't. This has been welling up for a very long time. And I feel now's the time to speak up and speak your mind. It's
Mhm.
very important with the North Node in Aries for everyone to become their own personal warrior, however they can be, and speak your truth. Stand up. Come on, this is the time to do it. So here's Kamala's chart, and just bear with me just a moment. Oh, we don't. This is not. Okay, this is an old chart. I'm going from an old. We want to. This was November 3rd of 2020. So
2020, yeah.
disregard this. I'm so sorry, but I'm going with some old slides because I had actually done a presentation on Kamala in 2020, right before the election in 2020, and this is what I'm borrowing from. So this is past history, but here's her chart, and as you
Well,
can
that was
see,
when they won.
Yeah.
that's when they won. This is the 2020 chart. Bear with me. I won't have to see it
That's
again. Bear with
interesting.
me.
Yeah.
This is November 3rd. Yeah. Chart and Kamala's chart, I believe.
The North Node was on her, the nodes were on her axis.
Yeah. I
Oh.
mean, you can look at that and for your own purposes, I don't want to digress. So I'll just go ahead and go to her chart and see. You see that she has her North Node right on the ascendant in Gemini.
Yeah, wow.
That speaks for itself, literally speaks for itself. And then Mars in Leo in the third house of Gemini. And then she has of course, a generational Uranus and Pluto conjunction in Virgo.
Yeah.
And she also has Venus there.
Mhm.
And her sun in Leo is in the fifth house of sun in Libra is in the fifth house of Leo, conjunct Gemini. Now, I don't have to explain that to anybody, astrologer or not. Her sun is conjunct Gemini, and Gemini is in the Scorpio, the sign of power. Now, she speaks her truth. She walks her talk.
Okay,
And then, of course, we won't go into Neptune and Scorpio right now. And then, of course, one of you had mentioned about her Saturn. Her Saturn is in Aquarius. Democracy, freedom, equality, community, enlightenment, the higher self, the higher mind. So here's her Saturn in the ninth house of Sagittarius. So this is a woman who is a natural, innate, I would say, diplomat. She's a diplomat, and words don't come easily to me. And the other word I'm trying to think of is somebody who travels to different lands and negotiates, an intermediary of some sort.
Yeah.
And I'll think of it in a minute. But
Ambassador.
Ambassador, yeah. Yeah.
What?
Ambassador.
Ambassador. Thank you, Sue. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your help. Similar to who we have right now, is his name Blinken?
Lincoln, yes.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you, Michaela. And so he is out there and negotiating, but she is as well, and she is going to be traveling and working, and she is an innate intuitive ambassador and diplomat. That's her Saturn right there in Aquarius in the 9th house.
And
It's
that's where the
very
full moon was.
Yes, as you pointed out there, yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's what you were pointing out with Saturn. Oh, see how it's like dominoes. It's like ping, ping, ping.
Amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing,
It's
Michaela.
lining up, yeah.
You can't make this stuff up. And so, here is Saturn here, and it's a very inductive Saturn. It's someone who knows what they know from direct knowledge, from source. And so she's going to apply that to her role in the world, and just work hard at showing the world what she knows intuitively. She embodies this. She is a very learned creature, extremely learned. Probably, many degrees, and she does have many degrees, and someone who could speak different languages and really get along well with other cultures and people of the world. I wouldn't call her a nationalist, so to speak. I would call her an internationalist. 9th house. Okay, let's move
Well,
on.
and she's multiracial as well.
Yeah.
Herself.
We'll get to that in just a moment. I have a little bit that I wrote about her. I listened to a podcast about her in 2020, and I wrote, this is actually where this slideshow came from, oddly enough. And yeah, I'll get to that in just a moment. But I knew she would be the Democratic vice president nominee, and I knew they would win. I just knew it. And then here, of course, is her full moon in Aries. Interesting, because her running mate, Tim Walsh, is at Aries, and he's almost exactly conjunct this full moon of hers in Aries. So
Wow.
right along. See if I can move along here. Okay.
The Sun trine Saturn as well. Wow.
Sun trine Saturn. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, Sun trine. Yeah, she has a lot of trines. She has a lot of oppositions. She has a lot of balancing elements in her chart. Let's see if I can get this to go.
And she's a Libra sun.
Yes.
Striving for balance.
Here's Kamala, and she's a Libra sun. Exactly. Was that you, Robin? Yeah, exactly. She has a lot of balance in her chart. So here is Kamala. Here is Timothy Walsh. They are only 6 months apart. He was born earlier in April 1964. She's born in October 1964. So they have very similar charts. But again, looking at Kamala, the one thing that they share, her moon is exactly on his Jupiter.
Goodness.
Exactly. And his sun, if you got to interrupt me, you got to say. But anyway, her moon's on his Jupiter in Aries, and then I keep losing my cursor. His sun is in her 11th house of Aquarius. Again, democracy, revolution, unresolved trauma, so to speak. But this is in her shake-up house of Aquarius, and of course, enlightenment, human enlightenment, and community and cooperation, and trying to get along, and seeing the higher picture, and the higher picture for all of the world, not just one nation.
And their friends.
Pardon me?
And her friend.
Yeah, amazing.
He's her friend.
Of course.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, it is amazing. And then, of course, their Saturns are conjunct, but that's a generational sign, and they're born 6 months apart. But her Saturn is in Aquarius, and his is in 1 degree Pisces. So he is a great, being the Pisces Saturn that he is, that kind of just steps up her Saturn, in my opinion. It's separating from her Saturn. It's a separating conjunction, and it's moving more toward unity. So the two of them combined are a unifying force in the United States, and I believe in the world. So you can just kind of look at that. I'm just presenting it for anyone that wants to stop it and look at it and study it. Moving right along here. Timothy Walsh. Okay, we don't have a birth time for Timothy, so here's a non-birth time chart. I put it at 12 noon, so don't look at the ascendant. Don't look at that. And then this is a rectified attempt. I see him, I meditate, and I saw him as Aquarius rising, but then I tried to rectify the chart and work with it, and I saw him more as a Pisces rising. so this is just an attempt, and when if we ever find out a birth time, that would be interesting to see what
Yeah.
I came up with. But here's his chart. He's Sun in Aries, and his moon is in Aquarius. So I knew he was very Aquarian, and I knew that he would stand for, justice for all and commonality and the common good, the greatest good for the most amount of people, the greatest good for everyone. And I knew he had something very strong Aquarius. And here's his moon in Aquarius. So that was a pretty good.
Wow.
That was affirming for me, an affirmation for me. Again, Saturn in Pisces, and his north node is in the 12th house of resolution in Cancer. So the way that I look at these charts is whenever you look at a chart and something repeats again and again in a theme, it's pretty, you can hang your hat on it. And this man is definitely learning about the divine feminine Cancer. Definitely. And if you think of what I really love to show people is if you think of where the north node of Uranus, the universal north node of Jupiter, universal north node of Saturn, that's my cursor again, darn it, Saturn and Pluto, and here is happens to be Neptune. They're all Gemini, Cancer, Leo area. And so he has his north node in this very progressive, forward-looking area of what you might say the universal north node area for everyone, everywhere at this time.
Nurturing the collective.
Thank you.
Wow.
Because his
excellent
is in Aquarius.
Was that you, Robin?
Yeah, well, I mean, his north node's in Cancer, ruled by the moon in Aquarius, so it's nurturing the collective.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. But this man is definitely headed toward, a saturation, understanding, and dissemination of the divine feminine. That's something that on a soul level, he's really learning and looking at and experiencing firsthand. And if you look at him and the way that he kind of plays off of Kamala and the way that they just your body language, it's obviously that he's looking to really be accepting of her position. I'll put it that way.
Yes. Great.
Sibley, go ahead. Do you see what I'm saying? He's very he's very polite.
Interesting with that.
Absolutely.
I think Mars in Aries, was it? Is it Mars in Aries it's called?
Mars
Yes.
and Aries.
Yeah. Which is interesting because that's so masculine, isn't it? Mars and Aries, and yet he's
Well-
supportive of her as, it could be the first woman president, and he's supporting. Interesting.
He
Yeah, but
was a football coach.
Yeah, wow.
And,
That could be more masculine than that. But that's that skip step, isn't it? Right in the T-square of the nodes, the nodal axis. It's squaring the nodes.
Yeah.
So that skip step. I never quite know what that means in EA astrology. I don't know if someone could fill me in on.
And thank you, Michaela. He does have a skip step here with Mars squaring the nose. Thank you so much. You guys are incredible. And that means it's something you didn't get quite right in a past life and you've come back to do it again.
Right.
It's something that's unresolved and it's a bit of a blind spot. The square meaning, the way that I remember that is if you're turning a corner, you can't see what's around behind the square until you get to the apex of the square. Then you can see around the corner. So
That's
it's a
a
bit
good
of
way.
a blind spot, and it's something he's learning. And so the node to resolve in this case would be
It's
the
the north
last
node.
node to pass conjunct the square. And was that you, Robin? South
Yeah.
node.
Yeah.
So what he's resolving is the resolution node is Capricorn. And so what I see again and again and again is someone who's known this patriarchy and been steeped in the patriarchy and been comfortable in the patriarchy and learning how to deal with the matriarchy. And
Wow.
you guys are nodding. And when you look at, I don't know how long I have, but I'm talking as fast as I can, but believe me, Kamala's chart represents the matriarchy and it represents balance. And as you all know, my teacher was Jeffrey Green, and he taught that balance is is the matriarchy. The matriarchy is balance. So
Right.
he's learning that.
Right. Fantastic.
So here's a Sibley chart, and as everyone knows, in 1776 we had the Declaration of Independence, and we had our Constitution. We implemented our Constitution, and the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and that was during the Revolutionary War of 1776. So that was 248 years ago, and the time that Pluto hit exactly 27 degrees Aquarius was in the winter of between 22 and 2023. So it was December 2022 and January 2023 when transiting Pluto went exactly to 27 degrees Pluto. And I love it that the Sibley chart, and I do use Gemini rising. There's a reason for that. Jeffrey used this chart of 3 a.m. as opposed to 3 p.m. But I just did too many. But anyway, you can use any chart. They all work. It just depends on how you interpret it.
So
here,
Marty, isn't the Sibley chart the Sagittarius rising chart?
Yeah, that's Sibley. Yeah.
that would be for 3 p.m. on July 4th.
Right, and that's the actual Sibley chart. So this is a variation of it.
Oh,
Then.
it could be. It could be. It could be. You know, I think you're absolutely right. Maybe I could have titled that a little bit different. Sibley variation.
The Gemini rising Sibley.
Yeah,
or
exactly. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I should have said. So anyway, you do have Pluto in Aquarius, 27 degrees Aquarius retrograde. So that's like an unresolved, Pluto for the United States constitutional chart. And then when you get into the actual 248 degree 248 year Pluto back to Aquarius of December 2022 and January 2023, Pluto is direct. So that I do see that 248 years past this 1776 date, we do see some kind of a resolution or working on a resolution of this retrograde Pluto and in the so-called Sibley chart. That's a really deep subject, but it looks like I do believe we're up for constitutional amendments and ratifying constitutional amendments and codifying Roe versus Wade. I believe we're in for a slew of new legislation and amendments to the Constitution, very similar to how it was first conceived of. We are at the anniversary of the United States Constitution right now. We're in the throes of it. And I think that we need to shore it up. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But in the Sibley chart, let's take a look at here. Her Kamala is outside, so her ascendant again is Gemini. So that speaks to a tremendous affinity with the United States constitutional chart. And conversely, it would be the Gemini descendant, Sue, if you're looking at the PM chart of July 4th, 1776. Either way you look at it, it's a tremendous association with either something new, learning something new, or understanding something very old that you know very well and very, very innately, grasping what you already know. In this chart, again, her north node is conjunct the in my opinion, the ascendant for 3 a.m. chart. I don't want to confuse people, but it's conjunct the Mars in the Sibley Mars in Gemini and Aquarius in Gemini. So that speaks for itself.
Yeah.
And then her ascendant, of course, and her north node are conjunct the Sibley Sun, Jupiter, and Venus. Gosh, I could go on forever, but her Neptune is conjunct the U.S. Sibley Neptune in
Virgo. Yeah.
Virgo.
Yeah. Wow.
Bear with me just a moment. Let me look at something.
Squaring. Well, T-squaring, ascendant, descendant.
Looks encouraging.
Yeah. And also because, Uranus going into obviously the return, the Sibley return of Uranus in Gemini will be happening in the next 4 years.
Right.
So everything
ahead, go
points
ahead.
to, doesn't it? Everything is pointing to their involvement in the next 4 years. It's very heavy. So, I mean, it's a very, very profound.
Yes,
So,
it is, Michaela.
yeah. So, I mean, you can't imagine both of them have got that sort of, those transits hitting their charts,
Yeah,
and
and
without them being treated.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's what's lurking in the subconscious, perhaps. But I made a mistake. I said Neptune's conjunct the United States Neptune. That's not true. It's Uranus, Pluto, and
Right.
Venus conjunct the United States. Her Neptune is actually in Scorpio, and that's completely different. Her sun in the Sibley chart, in this chart, her sun is conjunct the Sibley Saturn.
Mhm. Wow.
And then her Saturn, depending on how you look at it, is conjunct the United States chart moon.
Yes.
Widely conjunct, but being the moon, you can use a white orb for the moon. You can
Well,
use,
and with the true Sibley chart, it's exactly conjunct
Yeah,
the
96.
Sibley
Yeah.
that could be, yeah.
in the third house. I think it's in the third house.
Very
Yes.
good, very good. So maybe you could show that to us, maybe you could show that and we could look at both of them side by side. But anyway, that's very interesting. But one thing I do want to point out, and I know that I'm taking a while, but is this Pallas Athena here. I mean, she has a stellium here, and I'm not going to say what house it's in. It's actually, her stellium is actually in the 6th house. Because as I told you, she has Gemini rising. So this chart, this biwheel with the Sibley chart is not too far off her actual house configuration. So
Right.
she has Pallas Athena, Black Moon Lilith retrograde, and Juno in the 6th house of Virgo, and then Ceres appear in Sagittarius. Then Ceres appear in Capricorn in the 7th house, conjunct her south node. And one thing I know that Michaela could take that and run, and so could Sue and all of you. But I want to point out Pallas Athena because the chart, once you get to know a chart, once you get the feel of it and you start to grasp it, any piece is going to tell a story. Any part of it. It's a hologram. And so when you look at Pallas Athena in Sagittarius, warrior. And
Right.
Pallas Athena carried that sword that she was a sword carrier, and like I said, I know Michaela could do a whole
No, I'm not
presentation
that
on
good
this.
at asteroids, but yeah,
Or
absolutely.
Sue could. But Pallas Athena is the female warrior. She's also the goddess of wisdom. Whoops, sorry. And warfare, quote warfare, and preparing for and handicrafts and craftsmanship, and preparing for peace in the time of war. And I know
Yeah.
Pallas Athena pretty well because I've just experienced them. And I want to say that again, preparing for peace in the time of war. We are raising up a golden diplomat right now in the United States political scene, a golden, shining, illuminating diplomat. I mean,
Just
what
what the world
Pallas,
needs right now.
yes, and I mean that, and I'm finding my voice in the process. And
Yeah.
what I mean by that is, what Pallas Athena is all about is building up and joining together and cooperating, deliberating, negotiating. It's all about building peace during time of war, and it's very, very matriarchal. It's very, very much the divine feminine coming forth in all of us, because what we are seeing now in the world is tearing down and polarization and destruction and war and just a lot of destruction and destroying. And it's what, like Nia said, we need to look at the Earth and the Earth Mother and come together collectively, because we are just really right now on the path of earthly destruction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like Sue said, that's right on the ascendant too, isn't it? Of the other Sibley chart.
It is,
the
yeah, the ascendant, I just looked, it's 12/21, I believe,
yeah,
which is where
definitely.
we had an eclipse.
Yes.
Right when the brouhaha started with Trump
Yeah.
trying to overturn the election.
Yes.
So maybe you could, put that together. That'd be interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So
That's brilliant, though. That shows a whole different aspect, a whole different view of it, which is
That's right,
really
Michaela.
enlightening. Yeah.
It reminds
Athena
me
is
of that
powerful.
picture that's been going around on the internet of her as the Statue of Liberty holding the torch.
That's right. That's right, Robin. Maybe you and Sue and Michaela could work on that. That's amazing. But yeah, this is such a shining, illuminating example of a strong woman who wants to promote peace, in
Yeah.
times of warfare, and create lasting peace. And it takes work. And one of the things, I may or not get to it or not, but one of the best quotes that I have from her is when Joe Biden at his inauguration said, "Are you ready to get to work?" And she said, "Joe, I am so ready to get to work." She was born for this.
Yes.
Yeah, looks like it.
Born
Absolutely.
for it. And then Timothy, I don't know if any of you have been watching the Democratic National Convention or not, but what's interesting to me is,
Yes.
again, I feel something and then I look at the chart, and that works for me. It works really well for me. And
Yeah.
I was watching all the different speakers come out, and some had a swagger, and some were kind of slow or hesitant, and they were all different personalities. But he just burst out of that door like a coach going onto a football field with a whistle in his hand, and a cap on his head, and he just marched out there like a bull into a ring. I mean, he didn't hesitate. There was not really any characterization or posturing or
Mars and Aries. Yeah.
what's the word? Pretentiousness. There was none of that.
Yeah.
He was just out there. He came out punching, and
Yeah.
his presentation was the best that I have seen so far. He was
Yes.
really inspiring. Well, he is an Aries, so here's his sun in Aries, conjunct. It's conjunct his MC. It's conjunct his Mars in Aries and his Jupiter in Aries. He's incredibly
Yeah.
I want to say
Spontaneous.
contagious. He has a
Contagious.
contagious enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're not going to much look at the ascendant here, because I know that this is a different chart from the Sibley chart. But his North Node is again in Cancer. We talked about that. He's learning about the divine feminine. Of course, similar to Kamala, he does have the Uranus Pluto
Mhm.
conjunction in Virgo, and interestingly enough, his is retrograde, so he's learning something about soul-mindedness and higher-mindedness, and the power of the individual to affect the collective. He's learning that it's coming back to him. It's retrograde, something he's done before. And whenever you have a retrograde, it's a very differentiating and very individuating force in a chart, meaning he's really finding his voice. He's really finding his role, where he might have been a little more reticent to come out than Kamala, who's been preparing for this for lifetimes, in my opinion. But he's learning to find his voice and speak for the common good. Retrograde is how we come to know these symbols on a very private, individual, personal level. Retrograde, finding his, learning to read the signs and the symbols that are all around him, and follow that road and follow it in a very subconscious way, because retrogrades tend to be very subconscious. But he's been called upon, and he's answering the call, and I think he's waking up to the fact that he was sort of meant to do this. That's what I'm thinking. His moon in Aquarius, we already talked about that, and Saturn in Pisces. Now, this is a very old presentation that I had. And Sue, do I have like 5 minutes or not? I
Yeah.
can stop here.
No, yeah, if you want to stop here, you can stop
Okay.
here. We've been going, for an hour and a half, so,
Okay. What I'll
but
do is I'll save this part and I'll use it for next September. But let's see here.
well,
Let me-
if you have something you want to say that ties in with what you've been
Yeah,
saying all
exactly.
along, go ahead.
Exactly,
I was
Sue.
just saying, we've been going 90 minutes and, we
Yeah.
might want to wrap it up soon.
Absolutely. So
Fascinating.
one thing I want to do is just show you that Kamala's Jupiter right here, of course, and I'm not going to go into not going to go into the writing. Kamala's Jupiter right here is retrograde at 24 degrees Taurus. It's approaching, transiting Jupiter at 27 degrees Taurus right now. So if you just think about that,
Uranus.
Sue?
Uranus is over it.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Uranus. It's approaching, transiting Uranus. I'm so sorry. I do that right now in the sky. And so if you think of her innate sense of justice and fairness and diplomacy, Jupiter and worldview and her cosmology is not is less national and more international. Jupiter, it's approaching that Uranus in 27 degrees Taurus right now, and she came back to do it retrograde.
Wow.
And I think there's some practicality to it too.
Yeah, in Taurus. Yeah.
And then of course within the next 2 years, this Jupiter is going to
Sextile,
intercept, excuse me, transiting Jupiter and Mars in Gemini.
Mm.
So there will be a
All
lot of
systems go. All systems go.
there will be a lot of, I think, dissemination and clarification and open-mindedness discussion about politics and our role in the world, and she's going to affect the world. There's no doubt about it. She's going to probably strengthen NATO, if nothing
What I
else.
was feeling.
And allied forces,
Yeah,
and
sure.
also this Jupiter is going to conjunct Mars in Gemini as well. So she's going to speak up and have a lot to say, and she's very open-minded, Gemini rising, and she's very great orator, and I think she's going to do a lot of good for not only our nation but the world. And let me just get to a past slide here. Whoops, I don't have it here. Okay, so I'll just leave it at that, but I do want to say there's something I thought I had it here. Darn it. Bear with me just a moment.
That's brilliant. We have hope.
Yeah.
Kamala is of mixed heritage. She risks discrimination and rejection from the dominant Anglo culture, not only for being Black, but for being considered South Asian, etc. When she was married, her family was surrounded with lawyers. So she's not only a sun sign Leo, sun sign Libra. She married a Libra, and she's in a very lawyerly type family, so to speak. She's surrounded by them, and she's steeped in it, and that's who she is. And just as entrenched religious thinkers are, and what we need is more free thinkers. These are quotes from colleagues. Those who will think for themselves, we need, and I just put in parentheses, those that will individuate, Gemini rising. We need more free thinkers because we are in a bit of a political fanaticism right now, and we see a lot of political wars around us. And then
That's understating it, Marty.
Yeah. In the mire.
and then remember she had Neptune, which is Pisces, which is ruled by Neptune, and Scorpio. So she has a powerful and it's in her 5th house. She has a powerful spiritual influence on the world, and she's not afraid to talk about it, to exclaim it. And the thing about Pisces, which is ruled by Neptune, is it leaves itself open to either disillusionment, Sue, like you said, like the religious factions that we see right now in the world, but also it lends itself to projection, meaning that by example, she is showing a lot of people by her very physical, personal example, how you can be open to different ways of perceiving the people's beliefs. I mean, she just embodies that.
Yeah.
Comments from colleagues, she was deeply committed to transforming systems. Somebody said, quote, "You have this Black woman who comes in, hires an executive team of extremely progressive folks and is every single day pushing against the trend of mass incarceration." Well, she worked as a DA and tried to free up, prisoners that were falsely accused. And then at this moment, and historically, Black women have and will be persecuted by the right and the left. Even in this day of racial reckoning, Black women will always have to come in earlier and leave later and do better to get the ounce of credit that a mediocre white man would get in any sector. And I just have a few more quotes soon, I'll be done. What the others have said about her, she's cool, she can dodge and roll with the punches. 2011, she was sworn in as an Attorney General of California. In her acceptance speech, she said, "It is often said that a good prosecutor wins with conviction, but a great prosecutor has conviction." She has internal Jupiter conviction. Everything I did in my life was worthwhile, and I caught hell for it. So she has a very internal, sense of justice and
Compass.
Jupiter and what's fair and what's right, diplomacy. A political lightning rod. I'm not going to go into these right now. Let's see if there's one more here. Bear with me a moment.
It's a chart as you've described it so well, doesn't it?
She went to a Black college. She was encouraged to join the debate team. She graduated from law school. Her mother was diagnosed with colon cancer, Shamala, at age 70. Her mother had always stressed service to others, service to others. Kamala had followed in her footsteps and broken many barriers and held the door open to admit others. She had a commanding, could be intimidating presence. She believed in innovation. She has been described by opponents as having total unwavering commitment toward her objective. There's one more that I'm looking for. Bear with me just a moment. Okay, I'll leave it at this. Her earliest memories were learning to debate at the dinner table. She said it came in really handy in her household. If you stated your opinion, you were expected to defend that opinion. So if you spoke up, you had to explain it. Things were passionate. Being a, quote, second-class citizen, she was bused to a first-class neighborhood, so she has memories of mixed privilege that never left her. She's so universal. She was known for being a very normal person, but she did not want to be classified. Kamala from Sanskrit means lotus flower that sits on water but never submerges. Her added interpretation is one who can be in the midst of chaos, but the chaos cannot penetrate. Equally, one sits in the mud, meaning one is always grounded, and one must always know where they come from and remain the same. She's a very level, unifying, balancing force in our, not only our nation, but our universe.
So that was her quote?
Yeah.
Really?
Wow. It's amazing.
Yeah. And she's kept all this sort of under wraps these years where she's been the vice president. Very diplomatic, in fact, never sort of stepping in, taking Biden's limelight or anything. But yeah, it's like, whoa, it's impressive. That was impressive. Thank you, Marty. That was really. And as I say, we have hope now. It looks like it's in the bag.
I think we do have hope. I think we do.
Don't get overconfident because
no, of course.
that other guy, the former guy, is sneaky,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and he's meant to be, as Daniel was saying last time, he's a catalyst, and he's meant to shit.
He's a shit disturber.
Yes,
I mean,
devious.
That's
exactly.
His Uranus Sun conjunction on the North Node. That's his sole purpose in the world, and he's not going to stop at at losing for sure. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us.
Sure, but But it
Thank
looks
you, Marty.
hopeful.
That was lovely.
That was great. Thank you.
I hope that helps people, and I hope that helps give them hope. You don't want to be overconfident. No, of
Definitely.
course not. But I hope that helps clarify things for people a little bit. It did for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it helped. I think it would help for people to get to know her a little bit better, which I think is the whole object of the exercise right now is letting people know. And she does have her downsides, but we're
Well,
not going to
everyone
go into those
but
because we don't want them to be
But-
emphasized, but they'll be brought out as well. So I mean, it's not going to be easy. And the main thing is
oh no.
we got to vote, and we've got to convince people to vote. And
And it's not going to be easy, as you pointed out, with those transits happening, that she is well equipped for. She's a warrior, and so is he. Thank God, because it's going to be a battle even after, mostly after the election. So they need to be well equipped. But that just shows that they have a sole purpose for it. So
yeah.
it's brilliant. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
you.
This has been an interesting discussion. It's
Very.
always fun. We never know where it's going to go. And we will take this up again in a couple of months in October as we get closer to the election around eclipse. We didn't even touch on the eclipses.
No, we never got there again.
But as I say every time, we can save that till next time.
Yes. It was fantastic.
Well, thank you, Michaela.
Thank you. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Nia.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Oh,
See you next time.
thank you.